The Bigfoot Ohio Howls, also known as the Ohio Howls, are among the most famous recordings of what is believed to be vocalizations from a Sasquatch. Captured in the early 1990s by an avid researcher named Matt Moneymaker in Columbiana County, Ohio, these eerie, otherworldly sounds have fueled debate among cryptozoologists and skeptics alike. The audio remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence suggesting the existence of an unknown creature in the forests of North America. Here's a detailed and descriptive version of the Ohio Howls. The setting: a quiet Ohio night. The story of the Ohio Howls begins in a remote and densely forested area in Columbiana County in eastern Ohio. The region is characterized by thick woods, rolling hills, and small creeks that wind their way through the landscape. It is a place of natural beauty, and at night, a place where the darkness seems to swallow all light and sound, leaving the forest a world unto itself. Matt Moneymaker, who would later go on to found the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, was conducting field research in this area after hearing reports from locals about strange noises echoing through the night. These reports ranged from deep, resonating moans to unearthly howls, sounds that no known animal in the region should have been making. Some hunters, farmers, and hikers even claimed to have heard what they described as the howls of a Bigfoot, though no one could say for sure. On the night in question, Moneymaker set out with a recorder, hoping to capture any evidence of these mysterious sounds. The air was cool, and the dense canopy of trees above obscured the sky, making the darkness seem all-encompassing. The forest was still, with only the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of an owl breaking the silence. It was the perfect environment for listening to the sounds of the night. Moneymaker positioned himself near a clearing surrounded by trees. The anticipation was palpable as the hours ticked by in near silence. Then, in the early hours of the morning, the forest came alive with a sound that would send chills down his spine. The first howl, a low, moaning call. Out of the stillness came a long, low, moaning sound, unlike anything Moneymaker had ever heard. The sound echoed through the trees, carrying with it a deep, resonant quality that filled the air. It started low, as if emerging from the depths of the forest, then rose in intensity, growing louder and more distinct. The howl lasted for several seconds, wavering slightly, before trailing off into silence. The sound was primal, powerful, and haunting. It had an almost melancholic quality to it, as though whatever was making it was calling out in solitude, echoing through the lonely night. This wasn't the sound of a wolf, a coyote, or any other familiar animal. It was much deeper and more sustained, with a vibrato that seemed to pulse through the forest. Moneymaker, stunned by what he had just heard, immediately focused his attention, hoping to capture more. The second and third howls, a distant reply. Moments after the first howl, another slightly different sound answered. This one was farther off, deeper in the forest, but similar in tone and cadence. It rose from the darkness, traveling through the trees with the same eerie, resonant quality. The second howl was lower, almost a guttural moan, but still distinctly non-human. It too lasted for several seconds before fading away into the night. Then, to Moneymaker's astonishment, a third howl followed from a different direction. This one was higher pitched, but just as unnerving, as though another creature, perhaps from a separate part of the forest, was answering the first call. The overlapping howls echoed in the cool night air, their deep reverberations creating a haunting harmony. that seemed to fill the entire forest. Moneymaker's heart raced. He was hearing multiple howls, and they sounded like they were coming from large, powerful animals, communicating across great distances. Each howl seemed purposeful, as though part of a dialogue between creatures. The echo and power of the howls. What stood out most about these howls was their sheer power. The volume and intensity of the sounds were immense, suggesting the creature or creatures making them were large, far larger than any known predator in the area. The sound seemed to travel for miles, reverberating off the trees and through the hills, as though the forest itself were amplifying the calls. The pitch and timbre of the howls also made them particularly unnerving. They had a certain depth and resonance that most known animals, certainly not coyotes, wolves, or bears, could not produce. The howls weren't short or sharp, like those of a coyote pack, which tend to be high-pitched and yipping. Nor did they sound like the mournful howls of wolves. These calls were sustained, fluctuating, and varied in tone, much closer to what one might imagine from a large, ape-like creature with immense lung capacity. The howls were also distinct in their cadence. The way the sound rose and fell in waves suggested a level of vocal control not typically found in other animals. Some experts later suggested that the sound had an almost language-like quality to it, as though the creature was calling out with intent, not just to locate others, but possibly to communicate something more complex. The howls continue. For over half an hour, Moneymaker sat in the dark, recording as the howls continued. Sometimes they came from what seemed like close proximity, while at other times they echoed from deeper within the woods, as though several creatures were responding to each other. Each howl varied slightly in tone and pitch, but all shared that same haunting, deep resonance. Moneymaker, stunned by the experience, remained hidden and silent, his adrenaline pumping as he recorded everything. By the time the howls finally faded into silence, he knew he had captured something extraordinary, something that could not be easily explained. Analysis and theories. After capturing the recordings, Moneymaker shared them with various sound experts and researchers. Many were baffled by the sounds. Wildlife biologists and acoustics specialists who listened to the recordings agreed that the howls did not match any known species in the region. They were too deep, too sustained, and too loud to be made by a coyote, wolf, or other common animals. Some speculated that the howls could have been produced by an unknown species of primate, possibly the legendary Bigfoot or Sasquatch. The theory is that these creatures could use vocalizations to communicate over long distances in the dense forests, much like other primates, who are known to use vocal calls as a means of social organization and territory marking. Others suggested that the sound could have been man-made, though the sheer power and complexity of the howls led many to dismiss this theory. The terrain and isolation of the location made it unlikely that a human prankster could have produced such a sound, especially in the early 1990s, long before the advent of easily accessible sound equipment capable of mimicking the calls. Skeptics, of course, remain unconvinced, attributing the sounds to known animals or environmental factors. However, no definitive explanation has ever been given. Legacy of the Ohio Howls. The Ohio Howls are considered one of the best audio pieces of potential evidence for the existence of Bigfoot. Over the years, many researchers have used the Ohio Howls as a reference point when comparing other vocalizations reported in different regions of North America. The howls have been studied, analyzed, and featured in numerous documentaries, becoming a hallmark in the search for Bigfoot. Though they have yet to be definitively proven to come from a Sasquatch, the Ohio Howls continue to fascinate and puzzle those who listen to them. The recordings, combined with eyewitness reports and footprints from the same area, remain some of the most compelling evidence in the long history of Bigfoot lore. Whether the howls were from a Sasquatch or some unknown animal, they still stand as one of the most intriguing pieces of the Bigfoot mystery. Haunting sounds from the deep woods of Ohio that seem to call out from a creature still hidden in the shadows of legend.